Let's go. Hello to the people watching the VOD. Hello to anyone who's already watching live. How is everybody doing? Let me let me keep an eye on Twitch. I'm gonna pause that one. Yeah. And then I'm gonna go to find Twitch. There we go. Hello. The bitrate is good. Awesome. Cool. Hello to anybody watching. Let me just check. Yeah, that's up. Cool. Right. Brave Bravo. Hello. How you doing, man? How's things? The chat is finally is working this week. For those of you who were here a couple weeks ago, it wasn't working very well at all. But yeah. Nope, no one's watching. Thanks, Mac. Hey man, good quality content, love from India. Thank you very much. Hello, Pros Gaming Collection. I was gonna say connection for some reason. How you doing? I have a question actually. How would you replace a power supply in your PC? So are you talking about how I would physically go about, disconnecting things or whatever? Or are you talking about picking a power supply to replace the one you currently have? Hello, 3D printing newbie. How you doing? Oh, I've got some good news. I have a 3D printer, and by the fact that it's translucent, and there isn't. Come on, focus, focus, focus. I cover my face. Will it focus? No. The fact that there's no layer lines shows you that this is a resin 3D printer. It's the GPU power supply I'm talking about. Right, so a graphics card doesn't have a separate power supply normally. Normally a power supply. Wait, hold on. Do you mean power delivery, as in taking power in from the connectors and supplying it to the GPU core, or do you mean the bit that you plug in, right? Nice, what did you get? I got a Elegoo Mars, because that's the one that was available, and I purchased it. X570 Aorus Elite or X570 Steel Legend for a 3800X. So, off the top of my head, I would probably prefer the Steel Legend, but realistically, I think they're probably pretty similar. If they are at pretty similar price points, which I assume by the fact that you're asking, they probably are, then Gigabyte tends to have a slightly more less intuitive BIOS. A lot of the menu settings are split up quite heavily, whereas on ASRock boards they tend to be pretty self-explanatory, pretty simple. They're also, in terms of the ASRock boards, I've had a very good time with the B450 Steel Legend, so my assumption would be the X570 version is pretty good too. And actually, I do have a B550 Steel Legend coming in the next few days, so that should be pretty good. But realistically, I think they're both pretty decent boards. What I would do is just check what the VRM setups are like on those, on the two. Although realistically for a 3800X, that's only drawing maybe 80 to 100 watts or so. So that's really not much in the grand scheme of things. Hello, Harry. How you doing? Right. So I understand what you mean now. So what I would say is, what graphics card do you have, and what CPU do you have, and what power supply do you have currently? In terms of how you go about upgrading it, physically, obviously just make sure it's disconnected from the wall, disconnected from power. disconnect all the 24 pin, the 8 pin or 8 pins depending on what you have, the 6 or 8 pin graphics card power connectors, and any SATA or Molex power connectors that go to hard drives or accessories. Then you should be able to unscrew it and remove it from the case, whether that's from inside out or from the back out. And in terms of picking a power supply, generally speaking, thank you, Casey. Generally speaking, if you are, unless you have a high-end Threadripper and a high-end graphics card, like a 2080 Ti or something like that, generally 6 to 700 or 650 to 750 watt power supplies are pretty much all you need. So that would be what I'd recommend. As for the power supply, not entirely sure how do I check. It will normally say on the side of the power supply there's a sticker on there, and that will tell you the wattage and ideally what the model or manufacturer is. Yeah. No copyright. How can you check a used power supply? Realistically, you kind of can't. Obviously, you can plug it in and see if it boots up, but in terms of load testing power supplies in general, it's pretty specialized equipment. The thing with buying a used power supply is that unless it's used as in 30 or what you call it, a couple months old and was bought and then someone needed to upgrade kind of thing, unless that is the situation, I probably wouldn't buy a used power supply because they power supply components, especially the capacitors, degrade over time, and so the more use they have and the older they are, the slower and less effective and more prone to failure they are. And a power supply is not the sort of thing that you want to cheap out on with your PC because it literally connects to everything in your system, and if it fails, it can take out everything on its way, including your hard drives and data. So, yeah. James, are you also streaming on Twitch right now? I am indeed. It's multi-stream, so I'm streaming to both YouTube and Twitch at the same time. Sometimes they have different levels of latency. Sometimes it's normally Twitch is a little bit slower, but it's also Twitch is a lot more reliable. So yeah. But it's twitch.tv/TechteamGB if you're interested. Hello, Astrometer Super User. How are you doing? Also, hi to Xander as well, and also hello to James and Arpan. Recently found your channel. It's been a month, and I've seen a lot of PC components comparisons. Comparison were so precise and amazing. Thank you very much. Which board should I buy for the 3800X? I have a 2070 Super and 32 gigs of RAM, 500 gig SSD, and a 650 watt power supply. So like I said, if you're going for those two X570 ones, then either are good options. I would probably swing slightly towards the Steel Legend personally, but yeah. Oh, but the thing that I would mention is that with X570, unless you're planning on really making use of that PCIe Gen 4 support, B550 can be a cheaper option that still gets you PCIe Gen 4, of course gets you the drop-in or single easy BIOS upgrade to support Zen 3 architecture chips and that kind of thing. And so you can go with that instead. Or you can also just go with a good B450 board. They're a lot cheaper, you get better value for money there, and some of them will have BIOS upgrades, irreversible ones apparently, but they will have BIOS upgrades to support any Zen 3 architecture chips. Should that be important? Obviously they don't support PCIe Gen 4, so keep that in mind, but yeah. Unless you're dead set on X570, B550 might be a better value option for you. And there's a whole load of good ones out there, especially for something like 3000X. The B550 Tough Gaming is pretty decent, yeah. I did a review of that a couple of days ago if you want to check it out, so feel free. How many years before I consider ditching my 3700X? It really depends on what you do. If you're just gaming, then a while yet. If you are doing photo, video editing, whatever else, then potentially sooner, depending on what your needs are. I actually have a 3700X in my PC right now, and I'm tempted to upgrade to the 12 or 16 cores. Just because I'm kind of running out of CPU. Well, I'm not running out of CPU. Premiere now likes to make use of a lot of my CPU, and so that can be a bit difficult. I do also need some more RAM, so I need to do that too. But yeah, so yeah, it depends what you're after. Thank you, good sir. For those of you who haven't seen, I'm now officially a Twitch affiliate, so you can bit and Twitch Prime sub me if you fancy. So yeah, I'm gonna press the thank button. Okay, that's just it. Sure. Thanks. Yeah, I've not made a video on this account for 3 months and I'm still getting subs up to 9.1k now. Nice. Sounds like you'll be at 10k in no time. Have I missed any questions? If I have missed any questions, feel free to repeat and I will do my best to answer. I'm currently on 16 gigs, 2x8 for RAM. Should I upgrade and go for 4x8 or 2x16? Is there any performance difference? I don't think I'll need more than 32 gigs. So did you say what CPU you have? I don't think you did. So what CPU do you have? It's not a very big deal, but the thing to mention is that especially for Ryzen CPUs, the more RAM sticks you have in use, the generally less stable it is. Not a great deal, and especially if you're on 3rd gen Ryzen, that's really not a very big deal. But I have had trouble running, say, 3000 megahertz RAM with 4 sticks of 8 gigs to make 32 with a Ryzen 2700. It generally was fairly unstable at that, and so I had to drop it to 28 or 2933 to get it to be stable with all 8 sticks. If you take 2 out, it works great, but yeah, if you don't plan on ever needing more than 32 gigs, then adding 2 extra sticks, especially the same kit if you can find it, so same timings and same frequency, and ideally same manufacturer as well. If you can do that, that's perfectly fine. If you can't, then it could be better to swap out, but the easy upgrade is definitely just adding some more sticks in. So I'm coming to conclusions with live, so gaming and streaming, X570 Steel Legend versus B450, B550 Tough or the Aorus Pro Wi-Fi. So the thing, realistically, those boards don't have a very big performance difference. In fact, the B550 board has better Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 8X if you use Wi-Fi. Something Bill Gates quote. But yeah, it has better Wi-Fi if you need that. Also, it has 2.5 gigabit Ethernet if you can make use of that as well. So hypothetically, that is a better board. It also doesn't have a fan on the chipset, so it's going to be a slightly quieter experience while you're gaming and streaming. So yeah, possibly that. And Barak, I'm James Smith on YouTube. I usually watch the YouTube upload. Well, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for the bits, and I'm glad that you're able to catch it live. Now, you said the temperature was insane, right? Yeah. Right, fair. Astrometer super user. I sent the board back and got Gigabyte Z390 Gaming X instead. Fair, decent. What issue did you have with the Prime M Plus board? Also, as a note for the people who are interested in streaming and gaming, I have a microphone that I'm testing and that I'm currently using. I'm gonna hold it up so you can see. It's the new Elgato Wave 3. It's actually pretty nice. One of the things that it has is the thing called clip guard. Now, I'm gonna get louder here, but just bear with me. So even if you're talking really close into the microphone, it shouldn't quite clip, which is quite impressive, really. So that's one of the really cool features. The other one is the Wavelink software that I actually have open just behind the chat, but thank you. I will be covering properly in a full video at some point in the not too distant future. It's really nice. It's like £160 or something crazy, which compared to my old faithful Blue Yeti Nano, which is only £80, I'm not sure. I guess if it's worth it, really, but it is a very cool mic, and especially if you are at the point in streaming where you're looking for a solid microphone, this does seem like a very good option. I mean, it's not overly expensive in the grand scheme of microphones. I mean, I just spent more than the value of this on a single shotgun mic, so yeah. But yeah, it's pretty nice. It's also got a capacitive mute button on the top. Don't know if you can see that. So you just like tap it and it mutes. So yeah, it's pretty nice. Like I said, I'll do a full video on it in the not too distant future. Hello, Mizzy. How you doing? How's things? X570 has full M.2 support, so if I add another NVMe in the future, we'll help you there. So, while you're not wrong, the B550 board also supports two NVMe SSDs. The only difference is that the top slot will run at PCIe Gen 4, but the second slot will run at Gen 3 speeds and via the chipset. So if you had, say, SATA drives as well, or you're using that 2.5 gig Ethernet, you might be slightly bottlenecking the top end speed of the SSD. But realistically, you can support two M.2 SSDs with a B550 board with no problems. So yeah, I wouldn't be overly concerned. The only thing is if you need three NVMe SSDs, then maybe B550 is a better option. X570, sorry. Does 2.5 gig LAN on B550 really matter? Does it improve bandwidth? It only improves bandwidth if you can make use of it, right? So if you have a router that has a 2.5 gig, 5 gig, or 10 gig port on it, or a switch that then goes to your router or something like that. If you don't, if you're just plugging into a standard gigabit router or gigabit switch, then no, it doesn't make a difference because it has to be even on both ends. So it'll run at the lowest common denominator speed, or I suppose the highest common denominator speed. So if you've got 10 gig on one side and 2.5 gig on the other, then it'll run at 2.5 gig. If you've got 2.5 gig on one side but only 1 gig on the other, it'll only run at 1 gig no matter what you do, besides upgrade the other side. With that said, I think when I eventually end up upgrading and building a NAS, probably with Unraid, I will be throwing a 10 gig Ethernet card in here using my funky 10 gig semi-managed switch and connecting the NAS with a 10 gig card as well, so that I can edit straight off of it instead of a single drive in my PC that's potentially more liable to fail than an array of 6 WD golds. So yeah. I hate that under M.2 slot under my GPU. Also wouldn't get hot. So yes, they can do. They certainly can. It depends on your GPU, depends on the drive, depends on the airflow inside your case. Obviously, there's a lot of different factors, but yes, generally they do get pretty hot. ASMR, I need to crinkle a crisp packet next. As maybe your thing, but it's not mine. Or peel some plastic over the screen. That's closer, but still not quite. I have a 60 megabit plan, so do I need to have at least 2 gig 2.5 gig router? So the thing is that your internet will pretty much always be the bottleneck there anyway. The only thing that will you'll benefit from 2.5 gig LAN is LAN, so inside the house. So if you have a NAS or something like that, you will improve the bandwidth to that, but you won't be improving your internet bandwidth by improving your router or anything like that. It all depends on the line that comes into your house, and the service you pay for with your ISP. So yeah, almost 62k, Andrew. Indeed, what is it? I haven't checked in the last few days. Oh yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's kind of mental. The COVID spike is pretty real. If you've ever looked on my Social Blade charts, then you'll see what I mean. But basically, because of COVID, I've had well, actually, basically every YouTube creator that I've seen has had a really big spike in views. And what seems to happen is just the number of subscribers I get is directly correlated to the number of views I get, and it's pretty much the same rate. So if I'm getting 300,000 views a month, I'm getting like 800 subscribers a month. But if I'm getting 600 or 700,000 views a month, then I'm getting like nearly 2,000 subscribers a month. So I suppose at least that means that the content isn't absolutely awful. It's like semi worth subscribing for. So one option out is 2.5 gig LAN, and NVMe support is for one PCI Gen 4. There, I would question why you care about PCI Gen 4 since your drive is WD Blue. But yeah, fair enough. The X570 Steel Legend, as far as I'm aware, is still a pretty decent board, so you know, I'm not going to stop you or anything. But yeah, fair enough. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, in terms of the 3D printer, I've been testing quite a lot of stuff with it. These are the like chess rook pieces that come preloaded. It's incredible. If I show you one of them, because they're the same thing. I don't know if you. So obviously, size-wise, it's medium to large chess piece. But the thing is, if you have a look inside, not only is there a spiral in there, but there's also a set of stairs, and there is writing on the top. I mean, you can't see it because it's a translucent blue resin, but yeah, the level of detail and the fact that I've not done anything to this besides leave it in the sun for a bit to cure, and it's that smooth, is frankly incredible. Come on, focus. Come on. Well, you get the idea. Don't drop it. I really want a 3D printer, but I spent 4,000 on my new scope. Don't think the boss will let me. Yeah, fair, nice. That's pretty reasonable. It's fine. I spent like 16 on a car this last or a couple of weeks ago, so yeah, I'm trying to be reasonable with my purchases too. It's like the virus tubes from zombie movies. Indeed, it is. There's also Benchy, the 3D printing boat, and that's pretty incredible. It is a solid print, if you can see. I didn't hollow this out at all, so this is fairly hefty, as opposed to normal Benchy, which has emptiness and infill. But yeah, it's really, really cool, the quality and detail you can get. I've actually got a mini Baby Yoda print that I did a time lapse of, so that will be in the review of the printer at some point as well. Please correct me if I've chosen the wrong NVMe here. You can suggest any 500 gig NVMe. If you want PCIe Gen 4, the only couple options you have are the Corsair one, the Sabrent one, which is probably the one I would go for, and I'm honestly not even sure if they do. I think they do 500 gig. The Aorus one and Patriot do the Viper VP4100, although again I'm not sure if they do 500 gig at PCIe Gen 4. Yeah, why do you want Gen 4 is probably my question. For a Ubiquiti access point, will there be difference getting in-wall versus normal disk one? In theory, no. In practice, possibly. It depends on the price difference between the two and interference from the wall. Because obviously the normal disc ones just sit on top. They are able to radiate easily, whereas the in-wall ones have to be a bit more careful about what they do. What is your choice of sandwich to eat after building a great PC? That's a very specific question. I don't tend to eat many sandwiches. So, what if I said a pepperoni pizza but it's folded over slightly? That count? It's a few quid difference, but the in-wall has an out port which I need for the setup I'm making. Then in that case, fair, yeah. Hello app, how you doing, man? Gen 4 doesn't matter to me. Viper's not available in India. So then my point is that if you only care about it being an NVMe SSD, then you don't need to care about X570 supporting full PCIe Gen 4 versus B550 supporting one, and then a second Gen 3 drive. That's my point basically. So yeah, the WD Blue drive is great. It's a really good value for money. It's my point is more directed at your motherboard choice based on M.2 support for Gen 4, right? Yeah. A setup tour. The thing is that I don't tidy my desk basically ever. I tidy it enough so that you can only see a few cables. I don't really like showing the rest of it because I'm too lazy to clean it up. I also don't do any cable management behind the desk, so that's a solid no. What's the maximum thing to tinker on a Ryzen 3 3100 with its race.cooler? What do you mean? Oh, ow. What do you mean by maximum thing? As in, like, what setting do you need to tweak? Cans? No, as you can see, I've got enough problems that I don't need to drink. Not when I want to. I am having shooting pains from the back of my head to the front of my head, and it hurts quite a lot. Am I okay? So, like I said, I have a lot of things wrong with me, and oh, this one's lasting longer than usual. I can still move. That's a good sign. um, yeah, this is fairly normal for me. If it's not my head, it's my eyes. If it's not my eyes, it's my back or any other joint. If it's not my back, it's my stomach. Um, Not much of me works. uh, I just normally have the ability to be less obvious about it. Wow. Uh, you stressing yourself out too much? No, I'm good. Uh, there's a lot wrong with me. I think you need a software update. Oh god, I'd love that. That'd be fantastic. Right, I missed some questions. Should I get an Intel i5 10th gen or 9th gen for gaming? Realistically, the 9th gen ones are gonna be pretty much just as fast. The 10900 Yoga Hosen. Oh, nice. Um, Christ. So, the 10600K is pretty impressive actually for the price, especially if you're willing to overclock it. The question I would ask is why Intel right now? I suppose if you're solely gaming, then maybe, but yeah, sounds like a full hardware rebuild. Oh yeah, either or really. I'm happy to take take either. Gonna be making the jump from 60 hertz. Do I go 140 or 240? So, uh, in my experience, and I've tested a painstaking amount of monitors at this point. Not as many as Chris, totally dubbed HD, but still plenty. And 240 hertz, unless you like, obviously 240 hertz is better than 144. It just is. Presenting your eyes with more information more quickly is always better. But I've done blind tests, like control tests, where um, my partner changes the refresh rate of a specific monitor so that nothing other than the refresh rate changes. And I could not discern the difference. I couldn't say, right, this is 144, this is 240. 60 to 140, super easy. But when it is that big of a difference, when it is that high, I couldn't tell. And so, personally, save you money. So the thing is, Hobbs, when I did the blind testing, I repeated the testing multiple times. So um, I went from 60 to 140 to 240, not exactly in that order, but jumping around, and did that I think 3 times. So 3 runs on each refresh rate, going from one to the other, and it was super easy for me to tell 60 from 140 every time, both going up and down. But even going from 240 to 60 felt just as good as going from 140 to 60, if that makes sense. With that said, I'm not a highly competitive gamer. I was doing okay in COD for a bit, but yeah, like I'm not a CS:GO pro or whatever. So yeah, for me it's more of a small latency gain than raw frames. That's fair. So the you could potentially counter with, you can get very low latency 144 hertz monitors as well, and so that can also be useful. But I appreciate that like I said, more frames is more better. For me personally, 240 hertz is kind of diminishing returns, would be my viewpoint, but it's just my viewpoint. I'm not decrying that as the viewpoint or anything. So Yeah, if you have one and find it useful, find it better, then sweet, nice one. Yeah, fair. Blah, 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 blah. I have zero knowledge of building computers, or even know much about them or the components, but I can make excellent pancakes. Should I build my PC alone? Obviously. Naturally. Pancakes are just PCs. Maybe watch some videos first, eh? Where do you live? England. What are you getting out of me? I'm Scottish, but I live in England. I don't think I get much benefit over 90 hertz, but I'm incredibly old now. Fair, yeah, nice. I'm getting there, clearly. As the older I get, the less refresh rate I need. For gaming and Zen 2, which would you go? 3200 MHz CL14 or 3600 MHz CL16? That's probably a pretty tough one. Potentially, I don't know. I would probably go with the 3200 MHz CL14 because you might actually be able to overclock the frequency better than the timings, although it depends on the kit. If it's, I believe, Corsair Vengeance LPX kits, they tend to have more loose timings, and so going for the 3600 MHz kit would be better because you can then time it down to, say, CL15 instead. So maybe have a look at what kits tend to move the most in overclocking. Can you do a Hackintosh guide for the X570 Phantom Gaming X? So it's probably pretty similar to the sort of standard one I did. The only thing that would change is what kexts you need specifically for the memory. Although saying that, when I did my guide, actually, even though I did it with a 3rd gen 3900X, I did it with a B450 Steel Legend board. So yeah, but either way, I can't imagine that it's overly different besides, like I said, the kex. Should I get a 1660 Ti or 2060 for streaming gaming? I would probably go with the 2060 if you can, or even an RX 55 or 5600 XT. So when are more B550 board reviews coming, so I have better options to buy? For me personally, I have the B550 Steel Legend coming, but that's not going to be out for another good few weeks yet since I don't have it, and the lead time in my reviews is relatively long. So yeah. Jack, what would you suggest for gaming and content creating, Intel or AMD? So gaming and content creating, hands down, goes to AMD. I'd probably suggest the Ryzen 3700X as a good starting point there. You've got 8 cores, it's fast enough for gaming, but you also get those impressively fast 8 cores for editing and a reasonably low price by comparison. With that said, the 3600X is also a great choice if you don't quite have that kind of money. I play on a tiny laptop, the Node i7 and 950M. Average ping is about 170. Oof. I can understand why you might want to build your own rig then. Do you benchmark games? I do. Sort of, yeah. It will affect Hackintosh, but what are your thoughts on Apple dropping Intel? Thank you. So that's actually a really interesting one. I think I talked about it slightly last week, but the long and short of it is that I'm quite excited to see what the actual performance of their Apple Silicon is. Obviously, it's incredibly impressive in their phones and iPads and stuff already. But when we see more sort of full scale applications, especially in MacBooks and that kind of thing, that will be very interesting. it sounds like they're not planning on entirely phasing out Intel from their ecosystem yet. At least, well, yeah, entirely. Um, thanks. But yeah, uh, it's certainly interesting. Like I said, the like you said, sorry, it will affect Hackintoshing. So in 5 or 10 years' time, for example, when even their desktops are Apple Silicon chips, obviously they will cut out Intel support at all from the from Big Sur, or whatever it's called by then. And so yeah, that's um, it's definitely a downside for that, but it should be very interesting to see the performance that they can get and the efficiency as well, because those incredibly thin, like the MacBook Air or the MacBook or whatever it's called, that running Intel chip just seems insane when you compare it to what they can already do with even like the iPad. Was it 12 or 13X or something or other? So yeah, very impressive. Um, thank you very much, man. Um, let me go from. I'll go top down in the chat. So, what's the best graphics card for FPS games? Offers the best value for money and future proof for a while. It depends on. Thank you again. It depends what your budget is. The AMD RX 5600 XT and 5700 XT cards are pretty incredible. On the Nvidia side, you don't tend to get quite as good value for money, but the say 1660 Ti to 2070 Super, that kind of range, you're getting reasonable value for money and reasonably future proof, especially if you're gaming at 1080p. Do you know anything about GPU pass-through in Linux VM, and what's the best GPU for a Hackintosh? So the best GPU for a Hackintosh is anything AMD specifically. Don't buy an Nvidia card, just a Hackintosh. And if you do, you have to buy what, GTX 9 series or older, and you can only use High Sierra and not Mojave Catalina. So don't. An RX 580, that kind of thing, or even a Vega, or even the new RX 56, 5700 XTs, they're also fantastic options. There is a anti-Hackintosh guide that explains GPUs and ones to buy and ones to avoid. That's in my Hackintosh parts guide. Yes, it's in that video, so go check that one out. And do you know anything about GPU pass-through? A little bit. Wendell from Level on Text knows he knows a lot more. In fact, he probably knows more than I will ever. Yeah, he knows a lot of stuff. Point is, I know a little bit. The main thing with passing whole devices into virtual machines is that you want them to be in what's called an IOMMU group. Ideally, an IOMMU group on their own. Now, it depends on what motherboard you have, will depend on what the IOMMU grouping is like. Some will group a whole load of things together, and that's really annoying, and some of them will split out everything into as many groups as they can possibly get. There is a lot of different options, so you need to check the specific motherboards you either already have or are planning on getting. Good points. There's a whole forum about VFIO questions, but yeah, there's a lot more than I could ever A, describe, and B, definitely that I know. So yeah, check out Level on Text specifically if you want video content. Very true. TenSeries works on on High Sierra. Kepler architecture works on any, but it's still not recommended. Still get AMD instead. I got an offer for a 1660 Super on Facebook Marketplace for £160. Is that worth it? Chris, you're still watching. Can you see if that's worth it? Also, Chris, so for this network, I'm doing a pfSense or OpenSense router, but I still have ADSL. So I've put a modem card on the PC for that to work. what I would do is buy a standalone modem. Spencer will tell you that the like £5 or £20 OpenReach one is fine. There was also like a more like £60 one that he recommended that I think has the word dragon in it. Either way, get a standalone modem, ADSL modem. Also, is it ADSL or VDSL? Because ADSL is like 10 meg. Either way, get that and then just have the WAN output of that plug into your pfSense box as its WAN input. Does your shop, does your merch shop go to India? I assume, do you ship merch to India? So I use Teespring, so it will depend on what their shipping policy is. It's already like £5 or £10 to ship merch to the UK. So hopefully it's not too expensive there. At some point in the probably still semi-distant future, I do plan on bringing out some of my physically owned stuff. This is something I designed, like I made this in Blender. I actually really like the animations that I made for the sort of launch of these, but there are a local clothing companies like literally down the road from me, and also there's some other like products that I would like to sell, like water bottles, and also customized USB sticks, especially for like Windows installs and Linux installs. So that would be pretty nice to have some stock of if I can find some nice quality USB 3 drives that I can screen print or laser etch on. So yeah, when I get around to selling stuff like that, I will probably start manufacturing or having merch manufactured directly, and therefore I'd be shipping that stuff. And so then I would be able to give you a better idea of favorable shipping rates to certain places like India. But the long story short is, geez, I really ramble a lot. I apologize. But check out the thing in the chat, whichever, that way, probably. Check out the message at the top of the YouTube chat if you want to see that, or TechteamGB.co.uk/merch. Someone mentioned, have I thought of making a Discord server? I have one. It's linked in this video's description. That is true. Modem mode is also pretty useful. It will depend on what router you have. Some don't have a modem mode available. Some have a semi modem mode, and some you just have to plug one into the other and have it as a subnet. No, that's essentially what you do with a standard modem anyway, but there are a whole load of just straight modems that don't have routers, or they do technically have routers, but they only have one WAN output. Ask Spencer for a link to a modem. I can't decide between a Zotac Twin Fan and 2060 and a Ventus XS OC1. The Zotac one is cheaper, so realistically there's not going to be a massive performance difference. Have a look at what the boost clocks are from the two, and if the MSI one is significantly higher, 50 megahertz or more, then probably go with that one, but if not, wouldn't worry about it. What's your thoughts on the PS5? So I'm not a console player. The PS5 launching or the Xbox Series X launching doesn't really affect me in the sense that I'm still going to be playing on PC. But it does look cool. It's nice to have a newer generation available. And hypothetically, having some Zen 2 cores and some popular game consoles should mean that we get better optimization for, well, let's face it, Zen 3 cores when they both become available. So yeah. How extensive is fiber in the UK? Because I'm surprised that A/VDSL is still an option. So there's a couple of things to note there. VDSL is fiber to the cabinet in Britain. So that's how most fiber internet is provided. So I actually have fiber, but it's copper. It's 306 meters of copper out my house, down the road, across the road, back up the road, and then to a box across the road. Um, so that's how that is fiber in the UK. If you're talking about fiber to the property, that's pretty rare. Even Virgin Media, who do have their own infrastructure, they still use fiber to the cabinets, and then copper. It's actually a coax cable to the property. Um, but WAP is yeah, I'm jealous. Uh, quite a lot. I have fiber to the property 330 down. I'm also I'm jealous. um, the other thing to note there is that I that Britain is a very established nation. With a very built up nation, is what I was trying to say there. And that means that building fiber lines through the property is more extensive than greedy companies like BT want to afford. Although saying that, even with new even with new builds, friends actually, Steve and Jess, 5UP, Noble Chairs, Free Chairs Man, they moved into a new build estate, and they have ADSL, not VDSL, ADSL. Yeah, exactly. For some reason, my ISP only offers 10 meg upload in every plan, including top end 1 gig plan. That's the reason I didn't go with Virgin Media here in the UK, because even though they had a fantastic download um, capability, my upload would have been like 5 or 10 meg, which I couldn't be streaming right now with their plan, because I'm streaming at 6,000 kilobits per second, 6 meg per second, peaking at 7,000. So I I couldn't be streaming with their connection, despite having more than um you know 4 times my current download, but I get 20 meg up, and that's all I need. So yeah, I have a fiber box. I have fiber to a box inside my house, 3 feet from where I'm sitting at the moment. Actually, nice. What speed does that afford you? Good, Chris. That's good. I had a hard drive that just stopped working. It's not a cable problem because I bought a new cable. I believe it's a driver problem. It was the best drive for a Toshiba hard drive. So your hard drives, do you mean a USB hard drive? And also, Beatrice, I have a question about avoiding white noise while recording video. Um, so there's a couple of different ways. When you say white noise, do you mean like static, or is it from outside? Is there white noise being generated where you're recording, and therefore it's being captured, or is it being captured through your recording devices electronically? Um, Crikey, Mizzy, that's yeah, fair. At least you got good internet now. Uh, an external hard drive. Yes, so those external USB drives, often the USB controller board on them dies, and so stops giving you access to the perfectly good hard drive inside. So you more than likely will need to take it apart and take the hard drive out and either put it inside your PC or buy a SATA to a hard drive, a USB hard drive enclosure that you can plug that into instead. Wow. Yeah, I was like, that's yeah. The only difference between B550 and X570 is $30. Okay, fair. Um, then I suppose it doesn't matter all that much. It's up to you. I have a 5G phone and there's nothing like it. Fair. I don't know if you've tried gigabit synchronous, but that's pretty nice. Did I miss any questions? Also, thank you very much, Dolby. Enjoy your dinner. You're probably already gone, but thanks anyway. Symmetrical gigabit. Damn you, Mac. I want that. Is it worth buying the Steelseries Arctis 5S? So I haven't checked out the 5S, if that is a newer separate model. The 5s are certainly decent. I would possibly say there are better options now because the 5s are pretty old. But off the top of my head, I'm not entirely sure what option I would recommend you instead because I can't remember what price point they're at. Probably Corsair HS70? Maybe? I'm not sure what the what's at that price range. But the chipset fan, yeah, we have talked about that. No worries, man. Hope you have a good week. Catch there. So Mac, I think the reason why they do one line is that you can do one of the magics of fiber optic connection is that you can basically just keep the line the same but change the boxes on either end and get drastically better connection, whether that's bandwidth or latency or whatever else. But what I believe they do to do symmetrical gigabit both ways is the light effectively, so it's total internal reflection, so it's bouncing 45-degree angles perfectly all the way down the cable. So what they do, what the receivers and transmitter does is bounce the light at one point to go one way and bounces the other light at a different non-intersecting point the other way, so that you can be transmitting data simultaneously both ways at full gigabit speeds, which is just incredible. Having a second line is normally enterprise because I should say redundancy. It's for data corruption, so it's the same reason that USB has a twisted pair, or like USB 2 has a twisted pair. It sends data across both of them, and then can do what you call it, like parity checking basically, or error checking semi when you get the data back. Hello, Maker Guy, how you doing? Do you think the Aerocool 400 watt VXPSU is good? That's probably not the best power supply in the world. It will depend on who actually makes it, because I guarantee you it's not Aerocool. Do those gaming VPNs or DNS actually affect latency? Because all I see is adding one more server to the loop. So it very much depends on your ISP. If you're in America, where it's crazy and very unregulated for what seems like no apparent reason, then it can, because you're effectively either encrypting or tunneling your traffic to somewhere that is not your ISP, and so they don't know to throttle certain types of connections, because apparently that's allowed. But it depends on what your ISP does, and where the servers are as well. So yeah, technically speaking, you're right, but it's a bit more complicated than that. So you're probably right. Your CPU might be a reasonable upgrade there. a reasonable bottleneck there. Obviously, there's no harm in you buying the graphics card now and then going with a CPU upgrade a little bit later on, but yeah, up to you. Hello, can an RTX 2080 Super in a 10900K? Yes, that's fine. Bit of a weird choice, but yes, that's fine. Howdy Rowdy, I did manage to catch your message. In fact, it's still on screen. Generally, no. It depends on what card you're looking at. If you're looking at like the high-end variant of one manufacturer and the low end of the other, then obviously it makes a difference. But the realistically, Nvidia and AMD control the graphics core and how much they're powered and all that sort of stuff pretty heavily, and so not really. Nice swap. Let me know how that goes, and how light your bank account feels afterwards. Right. Any last minute tech questions before we head off? Oh, also, am I wrong in going for a 10700K over Zen 2 because higher clock speeds? I also like Thunderbolt. So if you like Thunderbolt, that's fair. In theory, USB 4, which will be Thunderbolt 4 as well, will be coming soon, TM, and in theory, some of those boards should support that with add-in cards. With that said, it kind of depends what you're after. In terms of raw clock speed, you can't just compare clock speed to clock speed. So, because the architectures are completely different. So 1 gigahertz on Intel could technically equal 1.5 gigahertz on AMD. I'm not saying it does, but look at the performance rather than the actual clock speeds themselves, because processor spec to a degree doesn't matter, the performance does. So Arpan, it could increase performance because it can overclock itself a bit higher, but realistically it probably won't all that much. But yeah. Right, that will do us for this week. Thank you very much. I hope I was able to answer enough of your questions and chat. It was great seeing you all. Well, not seeing you, but reading your messages. I hope you have a great week. And yeah, plenty of videos tomorrow, Monday, Wednesday, load of stuff. Links in the description, usual stuff, merch, whatever. But yeah, I will catch you guys next week. I'm going to end on YouTube first, and bye.